RHOBH Kyle Richards desperate for Mauricio back amid Morgan split. Is RHOBH star Kyle Richards desperate for Mauricio Umansky to return amid her Morgan-Wade split? Fans seem to feel she has no one as her kids are grown and fleeing the nest. Therefore, she is relying on the company of her estranged husband. So is she hopeful for a reconciliation? Keep reading for further details. Kyle Richards desperate for Mauricio back. In season 13 of RHOBH, it was clear that Kyle Richards and Mauricio Umansky were headed in different directions. She was all about working out and staying sober. Going out and partying was not as big of a deal for her. Yet Mauricio was busy with his company, the agency. That meant he was constantly traveling, hosting, and partying. She could and did not want to keep up with this, so she started to hang out with country singer Morgan Wade. Rumors began to swirl that the two women were having an affair, something they denied. Yet the signs were there and Kyle was quite giddy around Morgan. By the end of season 13, Kyle and Mauricio sat down with their children and shared they were separating. When the reunion aired, Mauricio had moved out, and Kyle admitted she was curious about being with a woman. Yet she had not dabbled aside from a kiss with Morgan. Season 14 has arrived, and Kyle claims she and Morgan are not together. More so, she won't even say her name. Yet she is very curious as to what Mauricio is up to and who he is hanging out with. She even questioned their daughter, Portia, about it. According to Monsters and Critics, fans feel Kyle Richards wants her ex back purely out of loneliness. She does not have Morgan Wade by her side anymore. Her daughters have flown the coop except Portia, and she is alone. She seemed to think Mauricio would always be there, and he did what she wanted and left. One had this to say: Kyle kind of had a whole girlfriend last season, and now she's upset that, like Mauricio, seems to be really moving on. Didn't she get tattoos with Morgan? The desperation of Kyle. Kyle Richards seemingly thought she wanted to be free and able to do her own thing. Little did she know that Mauricio would not be pining away for her. He replaced a photo of her and him with his DWTS pro partner, Emma Slater. That killed Kyle, plus he has been dating and is out and about. Kyle appears to have some remorse. Kyle is mad because she put all her eggs in Morgan's basket, blew up her family, and Morgan has clearly dumped her. Mauricio has moved on and is over her. Kyle is back to pining over Mauricio because her and Morgan broke up. When Morgan was around, she did not give F. She needs to examine her fear of being alone. She misses her old life when she is the one who left Mauricio to have an exciting lesbian love affair. Methinks Morgan broke up Buggy/her, so now she wants Mauricio to take her back. Mauricio Umansky moved on with philanthropist Nikita Khan and has struggles with his father's girlfriend. So the last person he is thinking about is Kyle and her loneliness. Kyle Richards paced the polished marble floors of her Beverly Hills estate, her trademark oversized glass of wine trembling slightly in her hand. The once unshakable queen of the 90,210 zip code was now a woman at war with herself. The headlines screamed louder than ever: Kyle Richards splits with Morgan Wade, reunion with Mauricio imminent, and the social media speculation was relentless. Kyle always prided herself on her ability to keep the chaos of her personal life somewhat under wraps, but this was uncharted territory. In the corner of the living room, her phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Dorrit and Teddy popped up like clockwork. Teddy: Kyle, call me. We need to talk. You okay? Dorrit: Babe, you're on page 6 again. The photos are brutal. Love you. Let me know if you need anything. Kyle exhaled deeply, muting her notifications. She couldn't deal with the concerned phone calls, the pitying looks, or the thinly veiled, told you so's. What she needed, what she craved, was clarity. And maybe, just maybe, a second chance with Mauricio. A broken bond. Their separation had been far from amicable, despite the carefully curated Instagram posts claiming mutual respect and eternal love for their family. Kyle knew Mauricio had felt blindsided by her emotional entanglement with Morgan Wade, the alt-country singer whose raspy voice and free spirit had initially filled a void Kyle hadn't even realized was there. But what started as an exhilarating escape had morphed into something far more complicated. Kyle adored Morgan's honesty and rawness, but as the months wore on, their differences became glaring. Morgan wanted to tour endlessly, to live life on her terms. Kyle, on the other hand, missed the stability, the predictability, and yes, the undeniable charm of Mauricio. Sitting down on the plush white couch that had seen better days, thanks to her 4 dogs, Kyle allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. She picked up a framed photo of her and Mauricio from a ski trip in Aspen years ago. Both were beaming, their arms around each other, the kind of couple who seemed destined to weather any storm. Except they hadn't. The call Kyle wasn't sure what possessed her, but she found herself dialing Mauricio's number before she could overthink it. The phone rang twice before his familiar voice answered, smooth and warm like always. "Kyle," he asked, his tone a mix of surprise and caution. "What's going on?" Her voice wavered slightly. I just wanted to talk. Are you free?" There was a pause on the other end. Kyle imagined him running a hand through his dark hair, a gesture she had seen 1,000 times. "I'm free. You want to come over, or should I come there?" "Here," she said quickly. "The girls are out, and it's quiet." "Okay," he replied. "I'll be there in 20. Kyle hung up, her heart racing. She felt like a teenager again, waiting for a boy to pick her up for a first date. Except this wasn't a date, it was her last shot at salvaging a relationship that had defined much of her adult life. A familiar presence. When Mauricio arrived, the air in the room shifted immediately. He wore a casual button-down shirt and jeans, his signature cologne wafting through the space. For a moment, Kyle felt a pang of nostalgia, so sharp it nearly knocked the wind out of her. "Hey," he said, stepping inside. His dark eyes scanned her face, searching for clues. "Hey," she replied, gesturing for him to sit. She perched on the edge of the couch, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her wine glass. "You look good," he said, breaking the silence. Kyle smiled faintly. "Thanks, so do you." There was a long pause, the kind that was both awkward and loaded with meaning. Finally, Mauricio leaned forward. "What's on your mind, Kyle?" She took a deep breath, deciding to go for broke. "I made a mistake, Mo, with everything. With Morgan, with how I handled us. I miss you. I miss us." His expression softened, but there was a guardedness in his eyes. "Kyle, you didn't just make a mistake. You walked away. You pushed me out." "I know," she admitted, her voice cracking. "I was confused. I thought I needed something else, someone else. But it wasn't real, not in the way you and I were real." The confession, Mauricio sat back, his arms crossed as he processed her words. "So what are you saying? That you want to try again?" Kyle nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm asking anyway. I want our family back. I want you back." For a moment, she thought he might walk out. But then, to her surprise, Mauricio reached out and took her hand. "Kyle, I never stopped loving you," he said quietly. "But love isn't enough. We have to figure out why this happened in the first place. Otherwise, we're just setting ourselves up for more pain." She nodded, the tears now streaming freely. "I'll do whatever it takes." "Therapy," counseling, anything. The road ahead. They talked for hours, hashing out everything that had gone wrong, and everything they still hoped to make right. It wasn't easy. There were moments of anger, frustration, and raw honesty that left both of them emotionally drained. But by the end of the night, there was a glimmer of hope. As Mauricio left, he turned to her with a small smile. "We'll take it one day at a time, Kyle. No promises, but I'm willing to try." Kyle watched him walk away, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She knew the road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be.